It's strange to think about my ancestor Cain. His story, the story of my people, feels like an open wound that never healed. You've probably heard of him, haven't you? The firstborn son of Adam and Eve, the one who spilled his brother's blood. His name is etched in history as both a curse and a lesson. But there's a part of his story that people rarely speak about. They wonder but don't ask aloud. Who was Cain's wife? Where did she come from? How could there even be another woman at that time? It's a question that haunted my family for generations, and today, I'll tell you what I know. Let me start at the beginning at least, the beginning as I've been told. Cain's life after he killed Abel was one of exile and shame. God marked him so no one would kill him, but that mark wasn't just a protection. It was a symbol of his sin, a reminder of the blood on his hands. With that mark on him, Cain wandered far from the presence of God and the land of his parents. He went east, to the land of Nod. And it was there, in that wilderness of loneliness, that he met her. The land of Nod was desolate, a barren place where the earth resisted growth, as if it, too, had been cursed. Cain had to fight for every scrap of food, and he lived with the knowledge that the ground would never yield easily to him. Nights were cold, and the stars above seemed farther away than ever. It was in that endless isolation that Cain first saw her. At first, he thought she was a vision, a trick his weary mind had conjured. But she was real. Her name was Azza. Azza wasn't like Cain. She wasn't like Adam or Eve either. She was different. I wish I could describe her to you perfectly, but the words don't come easy. Her features were familiar yet foreign, as if she was shaped by the same creator but had walked a path separate from our own. Some say she was one of the daughters of the earth, beings who lived beyond Eden, untouched by the story of the forbidden fruit and the fall. Others whispered that she was a descendant of the angels who once walked among us, though no one knows for sure. All I know is that she existed, and she found Cain. When Cain first approached her, he carried all the weight of his guilt. The mark on his skin burned like fire, reminding him that he was cursed. He expected Azza to turn away in fear or disgust, but she didn't. Instead, she looked at him with eyes that seemed to see everything: his pain, his rage, his sorrow. She didn't ask about the mark, and she didn't ask why he had come to Nod. Instead, she offered him food and shelter, simple kindnesses that Cain hadn't experienced in what felt like lifetimes. Over time, Cain and Azza grew closer. They were two lonely souls in a vast and unkind world. Cain told her about his past, about his parents and Abel. He expected her to hate him, to cast him out as God had. But Azza listened without judgment. She didn't condone what he had done, but neither did she condemn him. "You carry the weight of your choices," she told him once. "But that doesn't mean you are beyond redemption." Their bond grew, and eventually, they became husband and wife. Cain built a city in Nod and named it after their first son, Enoch. It wasn't a grand city, not by today's standards. It was more like a collection of shelters, a fragile beginning in a harsh land. But it was theirs, a place where they could carve out a new life together. But here's where the story gets strange, where the whispers in my family start to sound like something out of a dream. Azza, it seemed, had knowledge that went beyond human understanding. She spoke of things that even Adam and Eve hadn't known, things about the earth and the stars, about the creatures that roamed the land and the spirits that moved unseen. Some said she had been touched by God in a way different from humanity, that she carried fragments of a wisdom lost to us. Cain listened to her, and through her, he learned to tame the wild land of Nod. Together, they made it a home. But peace is never simple, and Cain's guilt was a shadow that followed him always. There were nights when he would wake up in a cold sweat, dreaming of Abel's blood crying out from the ground. He would stare at Azza, wondering how she could bear to be with someone like him. "Why do you stay?" he asked her once. She looked at him with those deep, knowing eyes and said, "Because even the broken can build something beautiful." Their life together wasn't perfect, but it was theirs. They had children, and those children had children. The city grew, and the people of Nod began to form their own culture, their own ways of living. Yet the questions never stopped. Who was Azza really? Where had she come from? How could she exist if Adam and Eve were the first humans? The answers were always elusive, like trying to catch smoke with your hands. The land of Nod was harsh and unforgiving, a place where survival felt like an uphill battle. Cain had built his home with his own hands, each stone laid as if to atone for his guilt. The mark on his forehead burned like a constant reminder of what he had done. And then, as if by some miracle or curse, she appeared. Azza arrived without warning. One evening, as the red sun dipped below the horizon, Cain saw her walking across the barren field toward his dwelling. Her figure was small against the vast, empty land, yet she moved with a purpose that unnerved him. Cain had seen no one else since he had been cast out, and he immediately gripped the axe by his side, unsure if she was real or some ghost came to haunt him. But when she reached him, her face was kind. Her dark eyes held secrets, but they also held warmth. She introduced herself simply. "I'm Azza." Cain couldn't speak. He stared at her, dumbfounded, until she tilted her head and asked, "Do you have water?" He led her inside, still wary but unable to turn her away. She drank deeply, and as she did, Cain studied her. She was unlike anyone he had ever seen. Her skin seemed to glow faintly in the dim light, and her voice carried an unearthly calm. When she finished, she looked him in the eyes and said, "I've come to help you." "Help me?" he asked, his voice rough from years of silence. She nodded. "You've been given a burden, but it doesn't have to define you. Together, we can build something new." Cain didn't trust her at first. He kept his distance, watching her every move. But Azza wasn't afraid of his suspicion. She began to work alongside him, planting seeds in the dry earth, weaving fabric from wild fibers, and tending to the small animals that roamed the area. Slowly, her presence became a comfort. She didn't ask about his past, didn't pry into the reason for the mark on his forehead. She simply stayed, and for the first time since his exile, Cain felt a glimmer of hope. One night, as they sat by the fire, Azza told him a story. It was about a star that had fallen to earth, breaking into 1,000 pieces. The pieces scattered across the land, but wherever they landed, they brought light to the darkness. "Even the broken can bring beauty to the world," she said, her eyes reflecting the flames. Cain looked at her, his heart heavy. "But what if the broken only bring pain?" Azza reached out and placed a hand on his. "Pain is part of life, but it's not the whole of it. We can choose what to do with the pieces we have." Over time, their bond deepened. They married in a simple ceremony under the stars, with no witnesses but the night sky. Soon, their family began to grow. Their children inherited Cain's strength and Azza's wisdom, and together they built a community. The city of Nod rose from the barren land, a testament to resilience and hope. Yet, the questions about Azza never faded. She seemed to know things that no one else did. She taught their children skills that Cain had never learned, like how to heal wounds with herbs and how to read the weather by the shape of the clouds. When asked where she had come from, she would only smile and say, "From far away." As the years passed, whispers began to circulate among the people of Nod. Some believed Azza was an angel, sent by God to guide Cain on a path of redemption. Others thought she was a spirit, bound to the earth and searching for a purpose. There were even those who claimed she was something darker, a being who had struck a deal to walk among mortals. Cain dismissed these rumors, but deep down, even he couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to her story. One evening, as the sun set and the shadows lengthened, Cain confronted her. "Azza," he said, "I need to know the truth." Who are you?" She was quiet for a long time, staring into the fire. When she finally spoke, her voice was soft. "I am someone who made a choice. I chose to leave behind what I was to become something new. For you. For us." Cain frowned. "But why? Why would you do that?" She looked at him with those deep, knowing eyes and said, "Because even the broken can build something beautiful." Her words stayed with him, echoing in his mind as the years turned into decades. Their life together wasn't perfect, but it was theirs. The city grew, and the people of Nod flourished. Yet, the questions never stopped. Who was Azza really? Where had she come from? How could she exist if Adam and Eve were the first humans? The answers remained elusive, like trying to catch smoke with your hands. Some of their descendants believed that Azza was a sign of God's mercy, a way for Cain to find redemption and build a new life despite his sin. Others thought she was a test, a reminder that the consequences of the fall were more far-reaching than anyone could understand. And then there were those who thought she was neither, that she was simply part of a mystery too vast for human comprehension. But there was one more piece to the story, something that sent chills down Cain's spine every time he thought about it. Azza's wisdom, her knowledge of things beyond understanding, had come at a cost. As their descendants grew and spread, whispers began to circulate about the price she had paid to be with him. Some said she had given up her immortality, that she had been something more than human but chose to become mortal for Cain's sake. Others believed she had made a pact with unseen forces, trading her freedom for the chance to create life with him. Cain never asked her about these rumors. He didn't want to know the answer. All he knew was that she had changed everything. She wasn't just his wife. She was the mother of a people, a bridge between two worlds. And though her origins remained a mystery, her legacy lived on in all who came after her. One night, as Cain lay awake beside her, he watched her sleep. The lines on her face told the story of a life well lived, but her expression was peaceful, as if she carried no regrets. He reached out and brushed a strand of hair from her face, his heart heavy with gratitude and sorrow. In the years to come, Azza's presence would be felt even after she was gone. Her wisdom, her kindness, and her strength became the foundation of their community. The people of Nod carried her teachings in their hearts, passing them down through generations. And yet, the mystery of who she truly was never faded. When Cain looked at the stars, the same stars that had shone over him and Azza in the land of Nod, he wondered if they were still watching, still guiding their descendants in their own quiet way. Because in the end, the story of Cain and his wife wasn't just about the past. It was about choices, burdens, and the hope that even in exile, something beautiful could be built. Cain learned to live with the questions, to accept that some stories don't have neat endings. And when he looked at his children and grandchildren, he knew that Azza's legacy was a gift beyond measure. She had been a mystery, a paradox, a question without an answer. And maybe that was the point. Maybe her story wasn't meant to be understood fully. Maybe it was meant to remind them all that even in the darkest places, there's a spark of hope, a chance for redemption. In the quiet moments, when the world seemed to hold its breath, Cain would whisper her name and thank the stars for the gift of her presence. Azza had been his salvation, his light in the wilderness. And though she was gone, her spirit remained, a beacon of hope for all who came after.